What's up, you HCMC Army and Moneymakers? Welcome back to the channel. I got a ton of questions around, is HCMC still worth investing? Especially if you own HCMC stock, is it worth owning them? What it means for the stockholders? If you own the stock, what you should be looking out for in the next nearer term, short-term catalyst. So I'll be talking about some of the very important information, some of the events that you should be looking out for in the near term future, as well as what are the key catalysts for HCMC in the long term. Now, without further delay, I want you to click on the like button and subscribe button so this video can reach to more and more people. I've been covering HCMC for a long period of time, and we have seen many ups and downs. At this time, we really want to focus on the short-term catalyst, regardless of what happens with the lawsuit, because it's more of a long-term catalyst. If you take a look, we are expecting the earning date March 3rd, somewhere between March 3rd and March 7th. So the first week of March, almost at the end of Q1. At that point, we should be able to learn more about what HCMC is going to do. So I'll be covering that. The second thing is I want to cover the short interest that we started seeing a little bit higher at this price point. We also want to look into the institutional ownership and what it means for HCMC. I also want to cover what are the insider trading trades look like and the ownership report that I'll be sharing with you, and I'll leave you with what's happening with the lawsuit at the latest as of January 24th. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, nor I'm a certified professional, so do your own due diligence. OTC traded stock HCMC has a ton of potential, but it's an extremely risky investment, so you want to do your own due diligence before you buy or sell. Do not bet your entire savings or portfolio, because you can make a ton of money in HCMC type stocks, but on the flip side, you can lose 50, 60, 70% as well. So do your own due diligence, research and analyze, and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're feeling extra happy. Click on the join button on the YouTube, and you can also join my Patreon. We have private Discord. Let's talk about what is going on. If you take a look, right now HCMC's market cap is $68 million. Now you should be looking forward for what HCMC reports as their earning for entire 2021 as well as Q4 2021. The company has been doing the revenue between 3 and 4 million quarter over quarter, and they have been sustaining the revenue regardless of the pandemic that was going on. However, we do see their net income is negative $700,000 quarter over quarter. We did see a positive net income in Q2 at the end of Q2, or Q3 rather, at the end of Q2, $180,000, but we got back into the negative net income of $1 million. That has also something to do with the lawsuit and what is going on. If you take a look right here, we saw the last update as to when Phillip Morris is asking for the attorney's fee, so on and so forth, and they are asking, HCMC is asking for extension to defer deadline to file objections to defendant supporting document for the attorney's fee. Now, at the end of the day, judge came back and on January 24th and mentioned that denying the motion to defer, and plaintiff shall have 14 days from the date of this order to respond to defendant's declaration and exhibits in support of their request for attorney's fee. Now, if you follow Jawsome Sauce, that I do follow, HCMC's response to PM attorney's fee motion is HCMC saying it's not the time just yet because they went to the appeal process, and the motion filed under seal is PM. Phillip Morris is filing some legal fee invoices, which is non-public. It's a standard. Now, motion for extension is HCMC saying PM filed too much to read quickly. Now, what that means is basically just said, no HCMC, you have time to read, you have 14 days from 24th of January and turn in your homework on this. Basically, that might be an outcome that HCMC may have to file the fee or pay the fee for the lawyers and so on and so forth. We'll be able to figure out within 14 days. I will keep you posted. So that's an update on the case. And once again, they were able to make a mention to have the amended complaint instead of just flat out getting dismissed and prejudiced the first time, so on and so forth, as Jawsome Sauce, who is an expert and also in expert lawyer, an attorney within the business of profession of attorney. So I follow them. Now, what you do want to consider on this is we started seeing the short volume ratio spiked up. As of last trading session yesterday, we saw 39.34 short volume ratio, which means 337 million stocks were traded. Out of that, the short volume was 132.9 million. In addition to that, you also want to note that we started seeing lower and lower and lower volume for HCMC, which means that there is a bit of deficiency in terms of the volume. We have seen as high as 40 billion shares traded back in the days, regardless of the stock being an OTC traded stock. Now, if you want to take a look, we were around 400 to 800 million in volume, dropped back down to 400 million in volume, that region, and we are continuing to see volume between 300 and 500 million. However, what you want to also focus on is there is an earnings season coming up, and Jeff Holman, their CEO, shared a year-end letter in December that I covered. But what I'm looking forward to, they mentioned that finally, please know that we are exploring potential ways to modify our capital share structure in a way that will be more favorable to our shareholder. This is something can spark a ton of momentum into the price point, as well as the volume that we are seeing lower this day can pick up. We have also seen that there are more than 85,000 watchers on StockWaits. HCMC has a very strong community. They are in the right business at the moment, making sure that they're providing healthier choices, life and living life for life standards, so on and so forth. So that is going to be a ton of potential. But if they come up with some juicy and important share structure or share restructure rather, that can add a ton of volume or value for their shareholders as well. We used to see 5 different segments. At the moment, we see only 4. The first company, the business units that they have, is HCMC Intellectual Holding Property that holds all their IPs. Now, you cannot really put a value to an IP up until it gets into the practicality or into the consumer facing retail world. But they have a ton of IPs into their book of business and portfolio. The second and the biggest one is their Healthier Choices Market with 18,000 square feet store that they have in Florida. Third one is the vitamin store and their online channel that they want to focus on a ton more. And the last one is the Healthier Choices Wellness Center. You also want to note that they have more than $28 million in cash on their balance sheet, which is huge because that can add a ton more value if they want to start acquiring companies left and right. At the end of the day, that adds value for the company to go up and running for for a long period of time, and they can also make decisions what is right for the company because now they have the balance sheet, stronger balance sheet, and a ton of cash on hand for the size that you see for HCMC. Given that $3 to $4 million in revenue, we can easily assume that they're doing $12 million in revenue, and their negative net income is not that high. So the company can go for many more years without even diluting or coming up with any sort of stock dilution. Now, if the company will do reverse split or buyback, we do not know at the moment, but that can be there can be some more news when they have the earning date coming up, especially for the entire year 2021, that they are going to share their earning, their income, and their EBITDA that they're working on. EBITDA is something that they're trying to reduce so that their operational cost goes down and their profitability increases. We know that their volume is comfortably about $3 million quarter. They're also focusing a ton on their business strategy, but before that, I wanted to share a quick thing, the institutional ownership. Now, if you take a look, there is particularly one Findmark National Bank and Trust. They have 231 million shares as of November 2021. We are at the end of the 3rd month mark, and we should be able to Also figure out what this particular financial institution is doing, whether they are keeping the stocks as is, whether they're adding more stocks or they are selling. I'll keep you posted, and I will look into the 13F as well as we progress towards February and March. So keep that in mind, that the institutional ownership is also important because they may have some additional information and projections the way they invest into the securities. Second thing you want to note is the insider trading and the ownership report, which also suggests how strong their own executives and management believe in themselves. Based on what I see on Fintel, the last trade I see is from their CEO Jeff Hallman in 2021, and after this trade the unit change shows 1.5 billion negative, but the remaining share for this individual who is their CEO is more than 9 billion. Also, you want to note that there is one other individual who also sold pretty much the same amount of units, 1.5 billion, that was also in 2021, March 31st, 2021. That's also CEO themselves, and at that time we saw that they had 10.5 billion in total stocks remaining with them. Also, there is Christopher, who is also part of their executive team. They also sold 1.1 million, or this is the negative unit charge, which I assume that they sold. With that, the remaining share that particular individual has is 6.6 billion, and followed by 2.4 billion by John, and they also sold almost 412 million shares of HCMC. That happened almost within the same time frame, mid last year in 2021. So all in all, I want to say that we did not really see the sell-off from their executives and the executive management and in terms of the ownership. So you want to keep that in mind. In terms of the business strategy, you should be once again looking into what's happening with their share restructuring that they just gave us some hint, and that will be really important and strategic move as to what they'll be talking about in terms of the exploring potential ways to modify the share structure. That's number one. Number two is you want to also focus on what the company does in terms of the revenue for the entire year of 2021 and the profitability. Third one we want to focus on is what is the institutional ownership and how the ownership is working out with 13F and what the institutions are doing moving forward. The next one you should be looking for is the ownership, insider ownership, and the last and the biggest catalyst that can add a ton of value. However, it's a long-term catalyst. It can take up to 1 year or more. The other catalyst and other events that I shared with you, it's a pretty short term. For the long term, these two catalysts are the biggest catalyst. Number one is the lawsuit that is going on. They filed a lawsuit against Phillip Morris for the infringement of their IQOS product. And basically, the combustion process is one of the key area where they are infringing. That is the claim from HCMC. This lawsuit, by the way, Phillip Morris is a multi-billion-dollar company. They have invested more than $3 billion. They have a ton of millions of users on a daily basis, and IQOS had some of the bumps along the side that they were growing, but they were successfully grew the product, and Phillip Morris would love to sustain and stay within the market and keep selling. So this lawsuit is very important. Given that the lawsuit was, the judge dismissed the lawsuit and the appeal process was filed by HCMC in December 2021, we do not know what will be the outcome and whether or not this will go into the discovery phase. We do not really have the timeline, and we do not really know what will be the final outcome. What we can say though is if HCMC keeps doing what they are doing in terms of the revenue, in terms of the profitability, and they have a ton of cash in hand, and if they employ that cash, so make that cash work for them and for their shareholders and for their investors, that will be a win-win situation. The next track that you also want to consider is PTAB application or the inter partes review filed by Phillip Morris that was in June 2021. The review has been instituted in December 2021, and we will have 1 more year before we find the final outcome on the patent that HCMC owns at the moment. However, it can be extended for 6 more months. So all in all, it can take, as a worst case scenario, 1.5 years before we figure out anything more on this P-type application. So these are long-term catalysts. The short-term catalyst I already shared with you. Now you decide yourself whether you want to invest in HCMC or want to stay invested. For me, what I am thinking for myself is I was there in for the long, and I do not have a ton of money anyway. And for the most part, many people are riding for free, because if you take a look how HCMC has been trading is amazing. We have seen that it was trading between 2 and 3, but prior to that, we also saw that HCMC had its peaks and its valleys. So if you take a look at for 1 year, you should be able to see that we hit all the way to 0.0065. We got back down to 0.0010, which was the rights offering price as well. Very similar price, 0.0010, the VWAP price, as to where HCMC raised more than 27, I believe $28 million, and they had all the common shareholders got into the 27 billion of their stocks. After that, on HCMC day, we saw 0.0035 and we got back down. Right now, as you see, the RSI looks pretty healthy to me. 46 RSI suggests not an overbought, not an oversold condition. The MACD is also looking good, but the most important part is the catalysts that are coming up for the short and the long term. We are trading between 2 and 3 levels, and I do assume that there are many swing traders into the game as well. However, this is a risk versus reward, so do not invest a ton of money. On the top of that, this is an OTC stock, so it's not widely available and there might be some delay. As a matter of fact, right now you see it's a 0.0002 level, and on a different portal I saw 2.5, so there is a little bit of a delay, and that's the nature of OTC stocks, so I'm not worried about. We have started seeing a bit higher short volume ratio, as I just mentioned to you as well, so that's something to keep in mind. So watch out for that as well. We have the earning coming up that is going to tell us a lot more, give us a lot more insight, and we'll be able to see where the company is spending their money and how their EBITDA is looking like. With all that, you can make informed financial decision. If you gained some knowledge, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't really cost you anything, and it'll be super helpful for the growth and sharing the word out for HCMC. So do your part. I will see you in the next video.